Hey, so I want to make this abundantly clear right now. This video was recorded long before Sonic 3 dropped and was only a week or so after the Knuckles show came out. And if you're wondering why I'm dropping this now, I got really lazy. I'm not going to explain here. So if I say anything stupid that's outdated, please do not get mad at me.
Okay.
I'm now the last of my tribe.
Oh. Our tribe has been through some tough times, too. Minus the giant owls. He's basically Jewish.
It's alright. Yeah, I'm gonna just jump straight into it and not try to set up any theatrics for something like the Knuckles show, of all things. The topic of humans has always been a point of contention when it comes to the entire Sonic franchise. It got to the point where people were really fucking annoying about it, which caused them to disappear for like a whole decade. My 2 cents on the matter? As long as they bring some sort of entertainment value or aren't a misery to watch, I don't care personally. But in the movie universe, I tend to be more positive about this sort of thing. You know, I enjoy the presence of these characters, even if I don't particularly care for them all too much. You know, the movies go out of their way to show why I should care for these characters in the first place. Hell, that's kind of what the entirety of the first movie was for. And with the way the Knuckles series was written, I enjoyed Wade's presence, though I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. As I mentioned prior, back when the series dropped, it got absolutely torn to shreds by the general fan base. And honestly, I cannot see where people are coming from for this sort of thing. I haven't seen a piece of Sonic media been this reviled in a long time. You could argue Sonic Prime was a big victim of this sort of thing, but there was still a very tiny minority that say the series is good even if they're wrong. But for this, I heard people calling this thing the absolute worst piece of Sonic media to date. And sure, people are allowed to have their own opinions, but really? This is the worst thing that this franchise has put out? I can name some things that are several times worse than this. I don't see how this is bad in the slightest. It's not fantastic or anything great or groundbreaking, but I felt like my time wasn't wasted watching this, you feel me? With the exception of maybe episode 3, I was entertained throughout this entire series. Or again, I didn't feel like my time wasn't wasted. With only 2, maybe 3 actual problems that hinder my enjoyment from this series. 1, the way the series was marketed was a bit deceitful, mainly just trying to say that, oh, it's all about Knuckles. But no, it's more so about Wade and Knuckles. I feel like it's a bit of a low blow to do something like that with deceitful marketing and calling it just Knuckles, thinking that it's going to be all about him, but it's about him and Wade. Or that the marketing should have made that a lot more apparent that it's about Wade and Knuckles. 2. I mean no disrespect to Eddie Patterson or her acting, but her character that she was given here is absolute misery to watch. Like, I get the intentions of what they were trying to get at with her character, is that she's got a bit of an ego. She doesn't really like Wade too much, like on a sibling level, you know, sibling hatred, that sort of thing. But the way it's written and the way it's directed and everything, it's pretty bad. I get they're trying to do the same thing that Wade does, where he also hams it up. The difference is that Adam Pally is a lot better at doing it, comparatively speaking.
No, that you just blew your chance with a certified meme lord.
3. Some of the jokes were written in a way that felt like it was hamming it up for how much of a loser Wade is. Though for the most part, they didn't feel like they come from Wade himself, as I feel like Wade as a character is very endearing to watch, as I feel like Adam Pally's acting is sincere, or at the very least, it comes off as sincere. However, other jokes that are at his expense don't feel like they come from the same sincerity as his acting, if that makes any sense. I don't know. This is my best way to articulate it. It is 2 in the morning. I'm very split on how some of the jokes were written. I want to say like 80% of the jokes that came from Wade himself were pretty funny, while a small number of them feel like the writers nudging at the audience trying to get into the joke of how much of a loser Wade is. But as for other characters like Knuckles, I want to say 90% from Knuckles, as I feel like Knuckles is also a very enjoyable character within the movie universe. As for other characters, I was very split on. Characters like Jack Sinclair were also fucking entertaining to watch all around, but that's only because of his appearances in the 1st and 4th episode. And let me tell you, that 4th episode is genuinely hilarious. It was probably the funniest thing that the movie universe is ever going to pump out. For other characters that I didn't mention, I feel like they just exist, or at least do the job what they're supposed to do fine enough, either in terms of storytelling or acting. But yeah, with the exception of one character, most of the jokes landed, but some were just like a bit cringe, but I understand where they're coming from because it's meant for families, you know, that type of stuff. For that one scene where Wade's mom basically calls Knuckles' entire tribe Jewish, which is one of the most uncomfortable things I've ever had to witness to come out of this entire franchise. The writer who probably wrote this didn't know what they were talking about, so I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt, but comparing a group of people like that to the Echidna tribe, which were basically killed off due to their power-hungry greed with the Chaos Emeralds and the Master Emerald, both in terms of this movie universe and the game universe, I don't think you should go around comparing yourself to the likes of that. And saying this will probably prove more stereotype, but what am I to know? I'm not Jewish, so I will keep my ass quiet. Either way, this is a really dumb fucking scene, and it kind of leaves bad taste in my mouth. I don't know, man. I'm gonna talk more positively about this series. I just don't know how to segue these together. These videos take a lot of energy to make. This series is at its best when it's Knuckles and Wade just hanging out and being friends, and the way these two bounce off each other is generally really fun to watch. I can't really hate it, or even say it's bad. And when I was complaining earlier about how much of a loser Wade is, I'm not saying you can't have an arc to where a loser tries to prove himself. I mean, that's the whole show, and I feel like for the most part, it does a pretty good job at that sort of character arc that Wade has. Even then, I was complaining more so about the jokes told, and not the way the character arc was handled. If I had to rank all the episodes, it would probably go like... Despite episode 3 not being all that great, I still think it has some fun things to offer. Mostly the fight scene in the kitchen, and the scene between Knuckles and Wade's mom was also really sweet to watch. The whole mini-series feels like a different take on Sonic 1. Instead of it being Sonic and Tom, it's Knuckles and Wade's family. And Knuckles and Wade talking about Wade's relationship with his father was also sweet to watch. It's not fantastic or anything groundbreaking, but it at the very least doesn't feel like a waste of time. You know, it's a setup and a payoff. It also has Knuckles' character arc from the beginning. You know, the little talk between Knuckles and Sonic within the first episode, you know, that sort of comes full circle. I appreciated episode 2 as well. The elaborate plan that Wade had to break out Knuckles was really funny to watch. And also, I think the Angels are pretty fun, or at least one of them is fun to watch. Even if I do think one of them was kind of middling and didn't really offer much. She didn't really have her own personality besides, you know, the typical objective of wanting to capture Knuckles. And that's not to say the actors that were chosen did a horrible job or anything, but I feel like with the script that they were given, they didn't really have an opportunity to do much. Kid Cudi jump scare. Yeah, I enjoyed Agent Mason, what about it? And it's definitely not because of my bias towards Kid Cudi and him being one of my favorite musicians of all time. It's definitely not that. Yeah, I don't know, I thought it was a pretty fun time whenever he showed up on screen. I mean, episode 2 really shows his worth here, as the way he talks with Knuckles and Wade is at the very least fun to watch, but I don't know, I'm really easy to entertain with this sort of thing. The fight scenes that he was in for episodes 1, 2, and 6 were pretty fun to watch, and I don't got much to dwell on for that. Though I will admit the way they get written out is a bit weird. There's like 2 different rings that go into each other and they basically cease to exist, which is kind of metal for them to die like that, but I don't think it should have been written out this way. I feel like there could have been a better option of some sorts. I also gotta praise episode 4 like one last time. I feel like this is where my praises end, as I feel like the other stuff I didn't mention were either just there, it existed, or were such a non-issue that I don't really feel the need to bring them up. But I would like to try to transition to my next point. This is the part where we talk about Sonic fans. This whole thing with people tearing it apart would have been entirely avoided if people kept their fucking expectations in check. You're fucking insane for thinking that they were going to reveal the Chaotix or Rouge in here. Not just from a financial standpoint, because it already costs a fuck ton of money to just get Knuckles in here by himself, but getting other characters must have cost way more than it should have, especially when it's something that has a TV budget. I mean, why else does Sonic and Tails only appear for a few scenes in episode 1? But also from a storytelling standpoint, these characters are meant to tease the next movie, or even flat out appear within the next movie. Why would they be put within a spin-off show on a streaming service hardly anyone even has? That's just gonna confuse the shit out of general audiences, and let me tell you something, general audiences are fucking stupid. I mean, that's the whole reason why the MCU is failing, as they keep investing into these shitty Disney Plus shows that are not only mandatory to watch, but are mandatory to watch for the next movie, thus not making general audiences not want to watch the latest movie because they finna introduce Bumfuck McGee because they introduced him in the stupid ass Gwee Gwee Galoo Disney Plus show, now available to stream. And God knows we do not need more of this shit flooding theaters every single year. Even then, I feel like for Sonic 3, what they're going to do is probably just have like a little callback that's like a little funny nod to those who watch the show, but it's also going to be a funny joke for the other people who didn't watch the show. Honestly, I'd give the show like a solid 7 out of 10. It's not fantastic or anything like that, but at the very least, I feel like my time wasn't wasted, and that's probably the most important part. But you want to know something that truly bothers me about the Knuckles show? Something that genuinely pisses me off to no end? This has been, unfortunately, the best Sonic show since Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog. Slim pickings, I know.